And now for our feature presentation.
You'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and happy September. Good afternoon and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice. Causes, not just cases, motleyrice.com. JB and Darren here till 2 o'clock this afternoon. Football season, as we all know, began last Saturday, but tonight starts a string of 6 straight days of college football. If you are of the college football fan base, you're going to be pretty happy starting tonight, certainly. We'll talk about all of that throughout the afternoon. J.C. Shurburtt set to join us coming up here at 12:30 until 1:30 this afternoon, and then our final episode of It's Time for Carolina Football with Keith Allsep, host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. You might sense a theme there. Bunch of South Carolina stuff to get into. Obviously, we'll talk about the SEC this weekend with JC. Pertaining to the SEC is also Clemson, because they're playing a program from the Southeastern Conference. The Georgia Bulldogs in a top 5 matchup up in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll go back to yesterday's depth chart as well with JC Shurburtt and look at some of the if you want to call it surprises, that's fine. There's a couple of things here and there that were interesting. We'll talk to JC about some of that. Certainly get into more of this quarterback conversation and things of that nature, and just our expectations. I mean, it's time to go for Gamecock football. What do we all now expect? We've kind of summarized. We've hinted. Forgive me while I fix my visor so I could see. The last few months, kind of trying to predict what we may see this season. We'll kind of sew and button a lot of that stuff up. We're going to talk about the Braves a little bit here in just a few minutes. Bishop Sycamore is still in the news and probably will be for a while. And we will talk about this amazing streak at Nebraska and kind of where it stands amongst streets. So there's a lot to get to certainly on our program today. But first and foremost, if any of you understood what goes on sometimes behind the scenes, you would not want our job. People say constantly, oh, you've got the coolest. Darren, when I worked at ESPN, when you worked at ESPN, working for CBS, calling Friday Night Lights, doing what we do now, everybody thinks, oh, it's just hunky-dory. It's beautiful. The sports industry is awesome. You don't want my life. I promise you that. What's up, man?
At the end of the day, it's all good, right? I mean, everyone's got their own jobs, and we do too. And there's fun parts of our jobs that don't exist for a lot of other people. But yeah, there's some chaos that goes involved with this too. I got one of my new favorite quotes. It's not really that creative or that new. One of the high school coaches I've got this week, and it could have come from either one, and they probably both agree. I was asking for stats. He goes, don't really care about stats except for those W's. Like, yeah, okay. Like it. I mean, Steve LaPrad's got a lot of W's, and Gutshaw Dorman's got a whole ton of W's, so it could have come from either one of them. I like it. It's a good way to start Wednesday of game week. The only stat that matters from a GA quarterback is a W.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm good with that. I'm with you. I think that if you ask fan bases like South Carolina, They'd say, "Yep, that's right. I don't really care who does what. Just keep putting numbers in the W column." No question. Speaking of football, tonight the Montgomery kickoff on ESPN, the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. That's where my new neighbors are from. UAB and Jacksonville State. If you're going to bet on this game, UAB 16.5-point favorites in that one. But it does start a string of 6 straight days of college football. A 7:30 kick there. And then tomorrow night, Thursday, here is the rundown. It's a lengthy one, so I'm going to give you the games that are notable. Darren's popped a few of them up on the screen there. Ohio State and Minnesota at 8 o'clock on Fox tomorrow night from Minneapolis. The Buckeyes 14-point favorites on the road. Row the boat if you want to go down that road. ECU and App State from the Dukes Mayo Classic version 1 in Charlotte. Saturday night, of course, Georgia and Clemson will be version gold in up there in Bank of America Stadium. App State 10-point favorites over the Pirates in this one. By the way, the over/under in that game 56. I found that a little low. We'll see. The Citadel and Coastal Carolina, of course, will kick off Palmetto State football tomorrow night up in Conway at Brooks Stadium. The Dogs just played a few months ago. Tough go of it last year. They had 12 total games between the spring and those 4 that they played last fall. Of course, a lot of those, all of them actually were FBS programs, if I remember correctly, Darren. And tomorrow night they're going to have a G5 program and a damn good one in Coastal Carolina. Boise and UCF at 7 on ESPN tomorrow night from the Bounce House down in Orlando. The Knights are 5-point favorites in that ball game. Jeff Scott, former Tiger, makes his debut as head coach. Bobby Bentley on staff as well for South Florida, 7:30 on the ACC network as they travel to Raleigh to take on the Wolfpack of NC State. 18.5-point favorites there is North Carolina State. And then the debut of Josh Heupel for Tennessee, 35-point favorites over Bowling Green, 8 o'clock on the SEC network tomorrow night. That kind of sets the stage, and we'll kind of work our way through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday throughout the show. But obviously a big one to kick off Friday night football. That's North Carolina hitting the road for Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech. One program that played last weekend is Nebraska. And the Cornhuskers are keeping alive, Darren, a streak that is remarkable. It's the longest streak ever in the history of college football. 376 straight sellouts in college football for Nebraska. So this game was in jeopardy. It wasn't I see you, Jeff. Jeff Scott made his debut last fall versus the Citadel. Just an FYI. That's true. That's true. I guess in his first full season without COVID. Can we say that?
Absolutely, you can say that. I was going through some numbers, and in a lot of them, I've done a last 5-6 years type thing, not counting last year. I mean, good, bad. It's just hard to count. It was different for everybody. So if I want a good example, I'm doing like last 5-6 years, cutting it off at 19.
So you and I are going to claim to be right, but Jeff is right, actually.
Well,
we're all right. We're all going to be right on this one.
In that instance, that
right.
it was a debut, but I'm not going to count that year as much as I count this year.
Yeah, like I feel like yeah. I mean, I keep saying it's his debut because I feel like this is when it truly starts for him. But Jeff is theoretically correct on that against the Dogs. Back to the Huskers. So 376 straight. By the way, they seat 85,000 in Memorial Stadium. This streak continues from 1962, the Bob Devaney era. Devaney? I think it's Devaney.
I'm not sure, but I go Devaney.
Jeff Hartzell, chime in as you will, please, sir. It doesn't matter. It's 1962. Today is 2021, September the 1st. As a matter of fact, September the 4th, of course, is when this game will be played. So here's what's happened. A couple of, I would call them wealthy donors, have bought up all the remaining tickets. I'm not sure how many were remaining, Darren. And they're going to go to a new program called the Red Carpet Experience. It provides tickets and a meal to children in 8th grade or younger to go watch college football. This is really, really cool. There's a lot of schools across the country that have these type programs. When I say schools, I mean athletic departments. And there are a lot of places that do this for the military. University of South Carolina is one of those. As a matter of fact, they'll donate a lot of tickets towards to Fort Jackson up in the Midlands. And then guess what? Because the university paid for their own tickets, that counts towards the numbers for the game that day. That's just the way it works. But this streak is alive, which is pretty remarkable. Trev Alberts, who is the new AD up at Nebraska, said, quote, "This is really important to us. It's important to our football program. It's important to our fans. We have tickets to sell. We have tickets to move." Here's what's even more remarkable. I would say maybe even just in addition to as remarkable. Nebraska they've been really struggling. And in today's day and age of technology, and you're seeing this everywhere. I mean, fans aren't going to the games like they used to go. And when you struggle, a lot say, I think I'm going to sit in the AC and have my own beer fridge and my own bathroom and this, that, and the other. But they were at least close enough to selling it out that somebody was able to say, okay, we'll scoop up these tickets and give them to these kids. So bravo to them. I tell Gamecock fans this a lot, and I hate to say it because I am one of them. The days of 98 and 99 when Carolina lost, 21 straight and they continued to sell out Williams-Brice Stadium, those are over. If you lose 21 straight games in college football these days, you're not selling out your ballpark. Matter of fact, if you lose 2 straight, sometimes you're not selling out your ballpark anymore, Darren. So I think this is really neat. And I'll say this too. I love these type of streaks. You want to know why? Like, think about all the great streaks in sports. And there's a lot of them out there. Like, there are some, I'm more of a baseball streak guy. And that's because I played the sport. So I'm really biased and jaded. So the Cal Ripken streak.
No sport has more streaks and history of streaks and numbers than the game of baseball.
That's true. And a lot of those streaks are, you don't even know about them unless you actually know baseball. You'll hear them and you're like, wait, what? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. But you do know what these streaks mean. The DiMaggio streak and most importantly, the Cal Ripken streak. If anybody ever asks me, is there one streak out there that'll never be broken? It's the Cal Ripken streak. Like that streak is never going to be broken. So there's a lot of streaks that you could talk about. But the reason that I like this streak and others, and I'm going to read you something here in a minute, is because it's about the fans. It's because it's about the fans. And a lot of the streaks that we talk about are team streaks or they're player streaks. And that's awesome. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not, but these are about the fans. And, it's kind of difficult to get 85,000 people to do the same thing every week for 6 years. And somehow Nebraska's figured out how to do that.
We said, I don't remember when the conversation was going on, probably last week before they actually played, how the fan base has impressed both of us. I mean, personal experiences with the Nebraska fan base, and they've impressed both of us. Mine was in State College at a Penn State game. I think yours was at Carolina. But it's a fantastic fan base. And the fact that, as you pointed out, they haven't been good. And not only haven't they been good, I mean, they went and they got their savior to go make them good. And they haven't been good. And then you've got this nonsense off the field this year, too. And then you've got the Illinois just falling flat on your face. And here they come again. It's very impressive because it's not something that would happen everywhere. It's not something that would happen probably it hasn't happened anywhere else. So it's hard to say it could happen anywhere. 376 in a row. I mean, ups, downs, awful year. It makes no sense to me. So it's impressive. And it's impressive that these donors didn't just buy it up and give the money. They said, hey, let's put these tickets to good use and actually get people at the game who want to be at the game. I think all of it all around is good. It shows the passion in that Nebraska fan base that often in the Southeast you don't see or hear about.
Yeah, and I almost made a mistake because I thought this morning, well, there's no way. Like, college athletics, we literally invest in college athletics. We went to these schools, we're members of the alumni clubs, we're members of the fundraising clubs, IPTE, the Gamecock Club, whatever that's out there at each school. Yeah, this is something, these type of streaks are more than likely much more geared towards college athletics because we all stood in the shoes that these athletes stand in as college students is what I'm saying here. But boy, would I have been way wrong. because the Green Bay Packers have sold out Lambeau Field since 1959. Every game, every year. Now, we might have all seen games where there are people not in the seats. That means the tickets weren't sold. And the Green Bay system, correct me if I'm wrong here, we need to get Rob Fowler on the show to clear this up because Rob's like Mr. Packer. The Green Bay system, you buy shares of the team.
Yeah, the fans own the Green Bay Packers. That is correct.
Right. So, like, you can walk around Green Bay while you're eating your McDonald's, and you're an owner of the Packers, theoretically.
Theoretically, yes.
So you all have a share, but they have literally, because of that system, the Packers, and we could all probably agree on this, 97% of the time when you see the Packers on TV, even though they've expanded Lambeau, that place is filled to the gills. And it's even more filled when it's negative 30 degrees up there. Like, they love that. People are nuts. but they've been doing this since 1959. That, Darren, that's why, like, I don't have an NFL team, but if I had one, it'd be Green Bay, because I think that it's theoretically a college town, and it most closely resembles the collegiate game in my mind, at least.
Oh, well, I mean, the town certainly
like
does.
The atmosphere. Yeah,
the field is in the middle of basically a small town. I've never been. I've heard about it, but I'll say this about the NFL: there used to be a time when every game in the NFL was sold out, and it was required to be a sellout, or at least very close to it, in order to air on television in the local market. That wasn't that long ago when those rules existed, where if you didn't sell it out, you couldn't watch the game in your local market. And if it wasn't a sellout, it had to be super close to that number. So it used to be where most NFL games were sold out. Those days have gone.
They're long gone.
They're long gone. You'll still see, I mean, the NFL games are very, very, very well attended. Yeah. But the days of sellouts all the time, no. But yes, for the Packers, because of what you said, the fans own the team. You have a share. I wonder what the exact share is.
I don't know.
1/800,000th of it or something. But anyway, it's still cool. I'd like to be a part owner or something.
I would too. I think it'd be neat. I mean, I don't know how. I know there's a list that's literally 100 miles long of people who want to be ownership of Green Bay. But when you think about the NFL, not to turn this conversation on its head, and I do want to read some of these lists here. I bet there's a lot of people that don't realize some of this. I did research this morning, boys and girls. But when you think of the NFL and you think of, all right, what are the best? Because we always think, like, especially on our show, the things that we talk about, Darren, is what are the best fan bases in college and stuff like that. But what are the best fan bases in the NFL? The ones that I'm literally, this is without research. I'm just like, photo memory. Yeah, they got great fans. New England.
The teams that are good and consistently good. Yeah, the Bills are widely recognized as one of the greatest fan bases in the NFL.
Yep. New England, Buffalo for sure. Just similar to Green Bay. Small town, really cold. Bunch of morons jumping on tables that are on fire. Denver has great fans. Matter of fact, here's a stat for you. The Denver Broncos sold out over 400 straight games from 1970 until 2018. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that was the number, but there will be similar numbers in there for other teams. I don't know if it's going to get up to the 400s. You're the one who did this research, not me. But there will be similar numbers in the NFL because of what I said. Sellouts had to happen in order for you to air on TV. And it wasn't that hard. It was an every week occurrence.
There was a day where the Cowboys were doing that too. And then thinking today though, like think about like the Seahawks. Seahawks have great fan base. That place is awesome to watch on TV. But then you think about like the Miami Dolphins. That's a horrible fan base. Jacksonville's terrible. They had to build a pool in the stadium to get people in there. Don't really care for that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to swim at the ballpark. I want to go watch football. It's like in Tampa. Well, we got to build a new ballpark for the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm like, so just build everything but the baseball part. You'll get people in there. Nobody cares. And they're probably the best team in the American League.
Well, I'll say, Bill, for the Rays, yeah. For the Jags, from the people I know that have been in that pool, it's a heck of a time.
Oh, I bet.
It's a heck of a time. I know that. It's like, if you're not that good, then make yourself have some minor league team similarities. Give people something else. Give them another reason to come. Yeah, there's a football game, but here, come do this while you watch the football game. Yeah. Apparently that pool's pretty awesome.
I've seen Perry Orth told me it's pretty sweet. Perry's from down there, All right, so check it out. The Dallas Mavericks sold out, including playoff games, 798 straight times from 2001 until December 8th, 2019. So that streak just ended. That's a lot of home games in 18 years. Holy moly. The Portland Trailblazers from 77 to 95 sold out 814 straight games in Portland. It's pretty cool.
Glad you're part of that era. The latter part of it.
December the 10th, 2019 ended a streak of 592 straight sellouts for the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Steelers, by the way, another great fan base. Penguins are as well.
Excuse me. That's incorrect. That streak is still going. They have sold out every game since 2007. The Penguins have. That's pretty neat. The Giants between 2010 and 2017 in baseball sold out 530 straight ball games.
Awesome ballpark. Get there if you can.
Yeah, I've heard you're not the only one that said that. I've got a buddy out in he goes to San Diego, goes up to San Fran, and he says they're much better than the Dodgers, by the way, is what he says. The Duke Blue Devils sellout streak is still ongoing in college, 460 straight.
It's because they have 460 seats in the place.
That's true. It's rather quaint and warm in there. Dick Vitale said one time when you sit up in the booth to call the games, it's like scorching hot up there.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine you're at the top of the rafters.
Yep.
Heat rises.
Yep. And when you cover games, I remember when Heather Dinich, now at ESPN, when she was covering the Terps, she would tell us that when you're covering games, there's a media member on the floor. You're right in front of the crazies. So as they start sweating and they're screaming, you're getting their like white and blue paint on your clothes because they're like screaming right around you and right over you. They're like inches away.
The Cameron crazies. They are crazy because they camp out forever. And then the Red Sox had 820 consecutive sellouts from 2003 to 2013. Of course, that was a great run for Boston. 03, they get to the ALCS and they blew it. The Boone walk-off, and then we all know what happened in 04, and they just kept winning from there. So I think these are neat. I didn't realize some of these streaks. There's other ones out there. The Colorado Avalanche had a 487 game streak that ended in 2006. Late 90s Avalanche hockey was a lot of fun. Blackhawks had one that was 504 straight games that actually ended in October of 2019. The Indians had a streak at one time that was 455 straight games. Matter of fact, in that streak, they sold 19,324,248 tickets. I mean, you don't ever really realize some of this stuff until you actually kind of go research it a little bit. But and there's some other streaks out there, but we got on that because of what the Nebraska Cornhuskers have done. 376. Here's the issue with Nebraska, though. The remaining 6 games at home this year all have tickets available, Darren. So over under, do they or how about this? Buy or sell, Mr. Jeff McCarriger. Do they keep the streak alive through 2021 or does it end this year?
It ends this year, and here's why. Because the team's going to go into the tank, and Scott Frost is going to be on the hottest of hot seats soon, and it'll end.
I think that just sucks. Let's see. Who do they have at home? They have so the game this week is Fordham. I think they'll win that.
Hey, if they're selling out that one, they got a good shot of selling out the Big Ten games.
Yeah, they got Buffalo coming up on the 11th. Then they're at Ohio State, at Michigan State, and then they've got Northwestern and Michigan. Well, they're going to sell that game out.
Yeah,
and then they're going to do it. If they get through Buffalo, there's no reason. They got a good home schedule. There's no reason that they shouldn't sell out Northwestern, Michigan, Purdue, Ohio State, and Iowa.
You shouldn't, unless the season goes into the tank and Scott Frost put. What
great home schedule.
You know what could save it? If the year's going into the tank and it's on the line, Alberts makes the call to fire Frost, and then boom, the extra tickets get bought up and support interim guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think they're going to keep it alive, man. I do. Tim Frisbee, you are way, way wrong. The 2004 ALCS was not fixed. The Red Sox won it. I'm not some big Red Sox fan, but I will say I kind of hitched a ride on that bandwagon starting in 2003 because I loved the makeup of that team. You're wrong. You're right on a lot of things, but you're not right about this one. Schilling and Poppy and the whole night. I know they're in your nightmares. I get it. But you're wrong, Mr. Gamecock. You are wrong. All right, 12:25 on this Wednesday afternoon. JC Shurburtt is ahead here in a moment. What we're not all wrong about is Bishop Sycamore. I think how many games is it now that have been removed from their schedule? Is it 4 teams that have said, forget it, we're not playing?
I think it's 3 or 4, and the coach was removed. And so this is well known, right? Like while I'm doing a lot of the graphics, I'm listening to Dan Patrick. They tried to get an interview with someone. Couldn't get in touch with anyone because at first the response was they're too busy on the Bishop end. And then the follow-up response is, sorry, we're too busy, was how much you going to pay? So we're busy. If you give us money to come on your show and interview us, we'll come on. So needless to say, nobody came on.
What type of slime balls are these people? First of all, what kind of moron turns down Dan Patrick? So basically, essentially, without actually doing it, they're trying to extort money out of Dan Patrick. I mean, this is like you know when you're cutting the grass, Darren, and you feel like you've picked up all the dog mess, but there's that one slimy one that's in the longer blades that you happen to step on while you're cutting the grass, and you just have smeared light brown, green dog crap all over your shoes. That's who these people are. They're the smeared dog crap that you step in while you're cutting your grass.
Great analogy. I sent you a screenshot yesterday. I didn't ask him if I could use it, so I'm not going to use his name. I do know someone who is a play-by-play guy, mid-lower levels. I want to say he's based in Texas. Anyway, the point is he had a Bishop Sycamore game this year. He didn't get a roster. This was a televised game. It was on Flow Sports, the same network-ish that televised the CAA. So it's on Flow Sports. That's why I didn't hear about it. And he didn't get a roster from them until 90 minutes prior to kickoff. Like, this is something he said he was trying to do it for 2 weeks. Didn't get a roster till 90 minutes prior to kickoff. The coach called the television broadcaster the night before the game to ask what time the game kicked off.
What?
Those are 2 examples of Bishop Sycamore football this year from an announcer.
Dude, these guys, I don't know if they deserve jail time or not because I don't know what laws they may have broken, if they broke laws. I don't know. But I do know I need these people to go away. That's what I need. And the parents who supported them and all that, I don't know what they thought they were getting out of this. That's bad parenting. It's a I don't know how involved the kids are. I don't know if they were duped. I don't know if they went along with this scam. I don't know. I don't have those details. So it's hard to sit here and be critical. But if the kids were duped, that to me is what makes my stomach turn. Like, these are, kids, man. And you did this for personal gain.
I'll say this. Tim Frisbee just tweeted at us, and I agree with him completely. Who the hell fired the coach? The school doesn't exist. So who fires the coach? I
don't know.
I don't know. I heard someone else who was doing some investigative stuff who was asked the question who the coach is. This was prior to the firing. She said, well, sometimes it's this guy, sometimes it's that guy. It kind of depends. So I don't know which guy of those got fired or who fired him.
How did you let your kids go along with this? Of course, they're not kids. They're like 24 years old. Craig, is Manti Te'o's girlfriend on that team? I tweeted yesterday that Manti Te'o's girlfriend was on the cheerleading squad. And somebody in Atlanta didn't like that. He said, that's pretty corny, bro. Well, I got that bad news for you, bro.
All right.
All right, we got to hit a timeout. When we return, JC Shurburtt, he's got light. He has a backdrop. He's going to be normal right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, proudly presented by Motley Rice.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed a new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honey beating on my screen. Oh, I got a little buzz in my head. So.
Cause we come from a long line of sinners like me.
You were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Just put a quarter in the jukebox and sing me back home.
Now we can see haircut, handsome, backdrop looking good. You wouldn't even know he's in Chicago. You'd think he's in some souped up studio somewhere at ESPN Studios or something like that. Bristol, Connecticut. JC Shurburtt.
Bristol. Hey guys,
we've never seen you.
I don't think I know.
First time I've ever seen you.
Look, I had to do this. It took about a half day, and got some more additions I'm going to make to the Shurb studios here. But obviously, it was well needed because I looked like the Shadow, like the Shadow knows, like that old show. But glad to be out from in front of the curtains.
In the words of Herm Edwards. He is who I thought he was.
Didn't know he was, but now I see him.
Oh, well, my friend, welcome. So good to see you. And I'll be honest, JC, I think we all have a little giddy up in our step because it's game week. Doesn't matter who you pull for. Everybody's fired up to watch them play. And we're going to spend a lot of time here now on South Carolina. Marcus Satterfield, by the way, is meeting with the media. And he said some interesting things that we're going to get to in just a little bit, JC. But you've been through a lot of firsts in your time at South Carolina. A lot of first games with a lot of previous head coaches: Muschamp, Spurrier, Holtz, Scott, Woods, and Joe Morrison. We could go on and on, right? We've been through this before. How does this compare to all of those? And just as a fan of the Gamecocks growing up, covering them, all that stuff. How does this compare in your mind?
Well, there's probably a lot less angst and consternation about this one than maybe the others. Because if you think back to it, okay, I did some research on this. Shane Beamer is the first new coach at South Carolina that's opened with an FCS team. Traditionally, for whatever reason, you go back and Richard Bell opened with Pacific. Okay. But I looked, and lo and behold, they were a 1A team at the time, unbelievably, but they were. So go back. You can go all the way to Dietzel. Dietzel opened against his former team at LSU in Baton Rouge. Carlin opened at home against Georgia Tech, which was ironically his alma mater. After Carlin, you had Bell open against Pacific, which, it was a win. Carolina had lost to Pacific in a shocking manner a couple of years before. Joe Morrison opened against North Carolina and lost 24-8 in 83. That 83 team got going toward the end or middle, obviously. So Sparky Woods opened at home against Duke, which is coached by one Stephen Orr Spurrier. Until the 2014 A&M game, that's the only opening game Spur had lost in his career as a college coach. So that was kind of ironic. Brad Scott opened against the University of Georgia. I think Eric Zier threw for about 879 yards against Wally Burnham's defense, but Tanio had a good game. It was a close game, 24-21 in 1994. Lou Holtz, and this is probably my most disappointing one just because of I was younger and maybe didn't realize some things at the time about personnel and offenses and things like that in 99. The NC State game. That was in a monsoon.
Yeah.
He had a touchdown.
That was Hurricane Floyd.
Yeah.
I was there.
Derek Watson's touchdown first touchdown of his career gets called back. They have a punt block, lose 10-0. That was an ominous sign for Lou to get shut out in his first game. Shut out of wins.
So stop there for a second, because obviously that was the start of the historically awful offense. I don't think we've ever seen an offense that bad. Everybody can bitch and moan all they want to about what they saw last year. You have no idea. If you don't remember 1999, you have no idea. They scored 79 points in 11 games, boys and girls. 79 points. There's teams averaging 79 points now.
And Lou was trying to run his offense from 1991 at Notre Dame, and that Phil Petty got hurt. I mean, people talk about the quarterback situation now. Good Lord. Kevin Sides, Kyle Crabb, Mikael Goodman, Carlos Spikes.
Was Brett Nichols in there?
I don't think he ever got a shot. Everybody else did. Hell, but
poor Brett.
That year was I'll never forget being at probably the worst Carolina game in terms of just an awful game, but it was really competitive and close. They lost at home that year to 11-10 to Vanderbilt. 11-10. I think I've told that story before. So the Holtz one was probably the most disappointing because you had all that hope, Lou Holtz is going to win the national championship. And then, reality set in against an NC State team. And, 2 weeks later against East Carolina is even worse. But, I think the 2016 offense before Jake Bentley took over was trending in that direction. But, and keep in mind that offense too, Debo was out for a while. Rico Dowdle was hurt and one, but it was trending in that direction. But they ended up coming back and actually being pretty good. The Spurrier opener, I was probably, unfortunately, I was living in Nashville at the time. Katrina hit right before that next Thursday. We still drove down. We're listening to the updates on the radio and all that. Never been more excited for an opener. And then, boy, they hit my buddy Noah Whiteside on the big pass early. And I thought, here we go. This is just like Florida when he was there. And, that game kind of hit a lull at the end. And then you want to talk about the pressure-packed game. It was the opener at Vandy with Muschamp because, nobody was really – obviously the excitement for that one wasn't as high as Lou and Spurrier, but, they were playing a team that was pretty good at the end of the year before. Shurburtt, I remember everybody going, Vandy has a better quarterback and better players, and they're going to win, and blah, 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 sassy media people. And, look, Vandy was in control of the game, but Derek Mason is going to Derek Mason, and fortunately for the Gamecocks, A.J. Turner had some big plays. Perry Orth completed some nice passes. And then Elliott Fry with a long field goal at the end to win it. It was the difference between a bowl and not a bowl. And obviously you don't want to lose to Vanderbilt ever if you're at South Carolina. It's going to happen someday. I hope not this year. Vanderbilt will eventually win again in that series. Heck, they beat Georgia a few years back, but that was big, and that was the most relieved I have been after an opener. But this game this weekend sets up way differently than a lot of those. I mean, I just mentioned a bunch of Power 5 schools they open with and all that. It's an FCS team. It's one where you get your feet wet and you go forward, one that you should win. I think people are just more excited about going out and seeing them play and seeing how they look and all that than actually being in jeopardy of losing the football game. So, I'm a little concerned about over some of the score predictions I've read out there about being overconfident, but after watching EIU last weekend, but it sets up pretty well. Like I said, first time a new head coach has ever opened against an FCS opponent at South Carolina, and the first time the Gamecocks have opened against an FCS opponent since 1987 against App State. Everybody remembers the 87 team that was alive then. Pretty good football team, right, guys? They were up 10-3 at the half and won 24-3 against App State. Sparky Woods, App State juggernaut. So, sometimes these openers, they're not as pretty as people want them to be. But the idea is to go out there and play your best and, get the rust off and win. I'd rather be South Carolina right now than like Ole Miss playing Louisville or Clemson playing Georgia or Miami with what they have to put out, or even Alabama. I mean, they kind of play Miami the first game. I think with the situation South Carolina's in, with all the new faces and guys, never having played at this level or in college at all, it's good to get a game where the matchups are overwhelmingly in your favor.
Yeah, I think that this is a stay on the same page game, JC, if that makes sense to anybody. This is where all of this hard work, you just mentioned it. You got a bunch of transfers now. You've got a whole bunch of new coaches, although a lot of them are obviously quite familiar with the program. But this is going to be the first time that they actually go out and put it all together. And this isn't necessarily – I think it's twofold. We all expect them to win this game. And JC, you're right. I don't think a lot of people expect it to be very close, and I think we're all hoping that it won't be. But this is also a game, I think, that it's not just about winning, because there's a fine line here, right? There's a fine line for South Carolina of, are they able to do enough to get into a bowl game in year one, or are they maybe a little bit better, but the win-loss record just won't show it. And so this is where they can kind of turn some of those pencil marks into pen a little bit. And as they continue to turn these pages, they'll all kind of be turning them at the same time, if that makes sense, because it's not just about winning this week. It's about trying to make sure that the gears are not grinding and that they're easily shifting when they get to Greenville, North Carolina next week.
Yeah, and I think you can have, anytime you have a bunch of inexperience in a first game, there's a ton of teachable moments. That's why teams in college football tend to get better between week 1 and week 2, even in situations where the level of opponent goes up. And let's think about last year. That Tennessee game, obviously South Carolina had its chances to win. They didn't win because they made too many mistakes. And that's the reason. And, it was 31-27. The next week at Florida, game was not as close as the final score indicated. But I thought South Carolina played a cleaner game that game than maybe they did against Tennessee in terms of mistakes and things like that. Kevin Harris got his first 100-yard game. I thought Colin Hill with 47 pass attempts was one of his better games against the Gators. People disagree with that. That's fine. The receivers played pretty well. And Carolina did get better between week 1 and week 2, and that happens, just about everywhere through college football. So, you're going to have teachable moments. What I hope is avoided is, like I said, people are saying, 82-3 and stuff like that. And maybe so. I mean, because when you have the backs Carolina does and you want to get them run and you're in the fourth quarter and you put in Rashad Amos, you're not going to tell him not to go score a touchdown, and Eastern Illinois can't stop it. They can't stop it. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be some sloppy moments. But what I want to avoid is people using the first game as something that indicates success for the rest of the season, because teams evolve, they change, they go through, improvement. You have injuries, you have guys that ascend the depth chart, you get guys that get benched. It's not a static situation from game 1 to game 12. And so that's what I hope, positive or negative. I hope that the fans just kind of enjoy the moment, enjoy the win. Hopefully it happens. And now if they lose, all bets are off. I understand. But don't overreact either way, to anything, because my guess is there's going to be some things in the game Saturday night that the coaches are really going to want to improve upon before they do go up to ECU. And that's okay. That's college football. That happens.
Depth chart came out yesterday. I wouldn't say that there was anything from a starting standpoint that was really surprising to me. JC, there were some things over the last few days that have been kind of shifting that way. Tyrese Ross cracking the 2 deep. Certainly one of those. Cam Smith is an or now with Darius Rush, which kind of leads us all to believe that he's going to play. Yesterday, Shane Beamer did say that Cam and Kevin Harris are probably ready to go. And so we'll see if we see them or not. I would say maybe the one thing that did stand out personally was Zakondre White listed in front of everybody. And I don't know that it's surprising. I'm not saying that it's surprising. What I'm saying is it stood out. We've known about this guy for a while. We kind of yesterday, I think, kind of wound through his collegiate career. He is a talent, JC, and I thought since he got to South Carolina, this is just me personally. I remember last year Michael Flint and I talking. I said, Mike, keep an eye on this kid. There's something about him. He's special, and we've heard that from inside the program. And now it looks like maybe they fixed some of those bugaboos, dropping the football, not running straight downhill, and things like that. Probably going to see them all, but I'm really. We know about Kevin. We know about Marshawn. I really like this kid. I'm anxious to see not just how much he plays. I'm anxious to see where he plays, JC. He might be playing out in slot and things like that too.
Yeah, it wouldn't completely shock me to see White and Lloyd line up as the top as the first 2 backs, or White and McDowell, or all 3, or whatever. I think there's going to be a lot of multiple back sets this year, and listing him at the top, I think, is kind of a tribute to the work he's put in and the consistency with his approach. It's not that Marshawn hadn't been special in preseason camp, because trust me, I've talked to many people that their enthusiasm about Marshawn Lloyd is even higher than it's ever been once they saw him in a scrimmage.
Yeah.
There's some player comparisons that after we actually see Marshawn play, I'll kind of throw out at you, but not now though. Going to avoid that. But I think, and you look at White, look at the spring game, and I'm talking about more than a handful of plays here, which some people like to overrate. So Quandre White and Jaheim Bell were probably the 2 best players on the field on offense. Skill, not counting the linemen. That first drive of the spring game, boy, how many times they handed it to him? 7. And he looked like a different player than he did in the game. And keep in mind last year, guys, Zaquandre got there late.
Yeah.
And it was COVID, and he got there late and all that. And then he comes in, and, I was told the day Marshawn got hurt by as good of a source as you can get, they weren't talking about Kevin Harris and Deshaun Fenwick. They were like, we need Zaquandre to come in here and, be that guy.
Yep.
They didn't know Kevin Harris was going to be that good, and that happens sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But he struggled. But what struck me and gave me kind of positive feelings is here's a kid that left Florida State because he got moved to defense. Went to JUCO, number 1 JUCO running back, comes to Carolina with a great opportunity, and at the end of the year, he's playing defense again. So I was like, I mean, I said it, but from what everybody told me, that he was more than willing to do that. Anything he could do to help the team. He played on all the special teams. He's the consummate teammate.
He was the first one down the field, too, on all the special teams.
And he worked his butt off.
Units.
Harris and Lloyd are out for the spring. He gets a lot of carries, and he worked the kinks out of his game. I didn't see the guy that, like, tried to dance and get thrown for a loss. And I saw a patient runner. A runner with good vision, a runner that can accelerate through the hole, somebody that ran physically and with finesse, kind of a slasher type guy. And he's put in the work, and he's been a consistent performer. He hadn't been out with injuries. He's been at every practice. And so, yeah, hey, look, man, if he gets the first carry, great. Nothing against Marshawn Lloyd or Kevin Harris. I don't know that it'll be that way the whole year, but for this game, if White gets it, great. I think he deserves it. He is a talent. And like I said, I fully expect this offense this year to have many, many situations where you have multiple backs on the field at once in various spots, and also multiple people that you call tight ends. I'm not going to call them tight ends anymore. I'll call Nick Muse and Trey Kenyon a tight end, but these guys are going to line up all over the place. And, we can call them tight ends. Okay, we can call them tight ends for the purposes of other schools may get word that they're not really, you want them to think that, I know. But and they're all coached by Eric Kimry. But, these guys, it's not like it used to be under Spur where you played, before like the Jared Cook era where he figured it out. You just play one tight end at a time. It's going to be more like the later Spur era where they had, 2 or 3 guys at tight end on the field at once. If you go back and look at those formations when Connor Shaw was the quarterback, Dylan Thompson, there were often times you had multiple tight ends. So I think you're going to see all those guys on the field a lot. If you just did a ranking of top 10 playmakers, tons of running backs and people they call tight ends on that list.
12:52 on this Wednesday afternoon. JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com, continuing here with Gamecock football. By the way, Zeb Nolan is at the podium meeting with our media friends right now. John Whittle is in there, and so anything that he dishes out, which, by the way, you can follow along if you head to the BigSpur.com. John does have a running thread of what is being said up there right now. He's got a bunch on Marcus Satterfield and a bunch on Clayton White as well. This is it. I didn't know this. I just want to pass this along. Zeb Nolan says, by the way, my first name is Zebulaya.
Oh.
And he was asked, well, where did that come from? And here's his response. I'm telling you, a movie is coming about this. An old mountain man my dad knew when I lived in North Carolina. Probably up there smoking something that's not legal, brewing something else that's definitely not legal but tastes good. Moonshine, apple pie. Anyways, he's the quarterback in case anybody missed that news. So a couple questions here. Aaron asks, I'm curious about Rashad Amos' sophomore slump. JC, I'll let you answer this. I'm going to kind of throw my 2 cents in real quick. I don't think it's a sophomore slump at all. I think the guys that surround him are pretty good. And following up his question, Craig says Juju is going to have a 50-plus yard run. It might be longer than that if he's back there fielding a punt or a kickoff return here and there. From what I understand, this kid is absolutely electric, and he's ascended on the depth chart as well. So kind of lump those into one answer here. And with that, JC, remembering and understanding what we've seen over the years in the Oklahoma-style offense with Lincoln Riley, if Juju McDowell was at Oklahoma, how would they use him, and how is that going to be similar here at South Carolina?
Well, the answer to that question is probably to be determined. I do think he's going to factor into the passing game. I think the tendency a lot of times with fans is to latch on to a comparison from the past. And I've heard Ace Sanders, and return game-wise, maybe. Juju's faster in a straight line than Ace, though, which sounds ridiculous. But
you got to be moving.
True. Yeah,
Ace's feet never actually hit the ground.
Yeah, it's just but that kind of thing. But yeah, I think just like at Oklahoma, or just like at LSU when John Brady was there, with the Panthers last year where they used Curtis Samuel in a variety of roles. This offense is very multiple, and so I think that happens. And we'll see. I expect a lot of guys to do a lot of all of the above, this season. And good, because that's, if you kind of look around the NFL and football in general, people are a little more creative. The Rashad Amos thing, and, Aaron, who asked the question, I don't blame you. I mean, everybody's concerned because you like Rashad Amos at the end of last year, but I just don't know. I mean, hey, maybe they should have put an or and by his name, but if they're going to play two backs at a time, the four ors made sense. And there's got to be a fifth guy, unfortunately, and that right now is Rashad Amos. What I've heard about him, there's no sophomore slump. That's very presumptive, I guess. People are assuming that based on the depth chart. He's done well. He's just probably, McDowell's versatile, White's versatile, and has been good. And then Lloyd and Harris, are really, really good. So who would you put him above? And honestly, at running back specifically, I didn't know that Juju would have this kind of preseason. I'd be lying if I said I did. I thought he'd be good, maybe the return guy. But, Amos would still be there. So to answer your question, there's nothing wrong with Rashad Amos. And he's still just a redshirt freshman.
Right.
And he's huge and fast. And I have a feeling Saturday night you may hear his number called. So I wouldn't get overly concerned about promising players that aren't on the depth chart. Because I think sometimes the tendency around here is just write people off. And then you watch the actual games and, here he goes, 70-yard touchdown or whatever. But he's got a bright, bright future. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, White and maybe Harris could be gone after next year. And then it's Lloyd and Juju and Amos and whoever they can sign or get in here through the portal. So his time is coming at South Carolina. And they flipped him from Western Kentucky. And he was a hell of an evaluation by Thomas Brown, who actually made quite the impact on this program the 1 year he was at South Carolina.
I want to pass along a couple of quotes here from the PC in Columbia. We'll hit a timeout, come back with round two with JC Shurburtt. One of these, though, is actually from the SEC teleconference. If you are watching or listening to our program in Columbia and you're going to be up there tomorrow night and you want to head to the Backstreet Boys Grill. Just kidding. It's called Backstreets. We just like to sing the song. Darren's favorite growing up.
Backstreet back. All right.
I was actually going to mention why in the world do you have a Backstreet Boys Grill, but there you go.
Yeah. it's just where they host the show.
I'm an NSYNC guy.
They went from the Wild Wing, where the wings used to be this big, to this big. To Backstreet. Shane Bieber did say today on the SEC teleconference that his mom and dad, y'all know who his dad is, Frank Beamer, who coached at Virginia Tech, legend. They'll be tomorrow night at the Backstreet Boys Grill for the call-in show at 7:00, hosted by Todd Ellis. And Marcus Satterfield today on the quarterback decision. The emphasis from the beginning has been on playing clean football. Quote, he showed that he gives the best chance to play clean football at this time, end quote. That should probably tell everybody why that decision was made. I don't think we need to expand on that. And then he was also asked about, the game this week, Eastern Illinois, ECU coming up next, Georgia, Kentucky, and so on and so forth. Quote, there's not going to be anything held back. We haven't earned the right to hold anything back yet, end quote. That's from Marcus Satterfield at his press conference today. And then I think this is neat too. Eric Douglas asked about game planning and things like that, and he said, quote, if it was up to me, we'd go up to Sat and say, hey, let's just run the ball, and if we throw, run play action. He said on Juju McDowell. He's going to let it loose on Saturday. You'll all see. So there's a couple neat little nuggets to be passed along from the press conference, JC. So put those in the memory bank. We're going to hit a quick timeout. The National Anthem is up next. And part two of our conversation with the owner of thebigspur.com, JC Shurburtt, right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour here on this Wednesday afternoon. It is September, boys and girls. Welcome back. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, motleyrice.com. JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, joining Darren and myself for the next 30 minutes or so, and then we'll turn the page and head to Austin, Texas, and find Keith Allsep for our from the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast with our It's Time for Carolina Football mini series. So JC, before we get into some SEC stuff, I want to, anybody that's watching or listening to our program today, there's literally like thousands and thousands of you every day. We Darren and I didn't dream of this in this short amount of time, but we're so thankful, and we're really thankful for so many of you that are members of the Big Spur, because I get on there and kind of toy around with you from time to time. Sometimes I got to take a breather. Some of y'all get after each other pretty good. I don't need all that in my life.
It's like battle royale sometimes. And
yeah.
I'm in the middle. I love it. I'm different than a lot of other folks in the business. So yeah, I'll get in there.
You get in there. Yeah. You jab here, jab there, knockout punch. I'm just kidding. But last night I did post a thread just to see what some of you thought win-loss records. I was going to say to keep it, somewhat decent, realistic, because you always get the guy who's, we're gonna go 12-0, and he's a half a handle through bourbon when he typed that. And then you have the other guy is, we're not gonna win a game until 2038, and he's also half a handle through bourbon. So I was gonna try to eliminate that, but I didn't. I thought, well, let's just see what people say. I want to applaud everybody. Everybody was pretty thoughtful, and JC, what I've discovered, I'm sure you've discovered this as well. I think a lot of Gamecock fans do think that this team can get to a bowl. And I think that a lot of them also think that if they don't get to a bowl game, they're going to be just shy, maybe 4, maybe 5. Not one person was, well, we're going to shock everybody and go 9-3. I think there might have been an 8-4 in there. Not one person was, well, we're going to be 3-9. Everybody's pretty realistic. And I think that that's fair to the program. I don't think, read some of these back-to-back 11, 6-6, and a bowl victory to finish 7-6, plus wins over Tennessee and Kentucky. JT Warlick 5-7, 7-5 here, 7-5 there, 6-6, 4-4 in the league from GCSC 19. I don't know any of these people are. You probably know them. So I guess what I'm getting out of this, JC, is I think that this fan base has calmed down a lot, and I think that we would all be none of us would be surprised to see 4-8, to see 5-7, to see 6-6, to see 7-5, maybe even 8-4. You're probably getting into surprise category. But I think a lot of people have been very realistic, and what that tells me is that the fan base, I think, is understanding that this might take some time under Shane Beamer, but at least understanding also that it seems to be heading in the right direction.
I'm going to say this. I have a hard time, and look, maybe I'll change my opinion here. I have a hard time with some of the best they could do is 3 wins crowd.
Yeah.
All right. So riddle me this, Batman. How many teams that are lining up with a 2 deep at defensive line on the defensive line that has a super senior 9.5 career sacks that was injured last year, that's been one of the SEC's top sack artists before, backed up by a 5-star 6'6", 270-pound guy named Jordan Birch, who's the second ranked recruit of all time in program history that everybody in the country wanted. Beside them, you got Zach Pickens, who was a top 10 prospect nationally, who's coming into his own. Behind him, you have Boogie Huntley, who was a top 200 guy coming out of high school. He is young. Then you have Jabari Ellis, who's a 6-year guy. He's probably older than me out there. That was actually, when you graded they graded the film last year, graded out better than any D tackle. Behind him, you have Tonka Hemingway, who was probably the least talked about, potentially great player on the team, who, oh, by the way, he's 300 pounds now and carries it well. And beside then, you got JJ Enigbare, a potential first-round draft pick, who was an all-SEC selection last year. And, oh, behind him, you got Jordan Strachan, who happened to just lead the country in sacks last year. So tell me a team that lines up with that kind of 2 deep on the defensive front, which is the difference-making position really in college football besides quarterback. And I know we all got kind of weird last year because of COVID. Defenses were bad, and everybody's going up and down the field, and everybody thinks now it's 7-on-7. Well, I think we're about to, watch Miami and Alabama this weekend. And that game could go, I'm not predicting that, but my hunch is that Alabama defense is going to be dominant. My hunch is Clemson and Georgia are going to be low scoring. My hunch is defense is coming back. Now, there's going to be points scored and explosive offenses and all that, and that's all well and good. But I think a lot of people are under the impression, because of what happened last season, that you got to play like the Big 12. Shoot, there's fans out there that have flat out said on the BigSpur.com, I'd rather lose 52-45 than win 14-10, which is ludicrous. What? I mean, Marcus Satterfield says they haven't earned. Yeah, well, because they're just giving up on the season. Like this season, they're thinking 2-10, so may as well just sacrifice. It's the it's the typical South Carolina fan. We need to fall on the sword for no reason kind of deal. And there is a portion of the fan base that's like that. And so I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. I'm having a hard time wrapping on offense. How many teams that have that kind of athleticism and size on the offensive line, 4 returning starters, 9 guys that have started in the game, a legitimate 2 deep for the first time since I can remember, multiple versatile weapons at tight end, the conference's leading rusher coming back, and oh, by the way, the number 1 JUCO back in the country in his class, a former top 100 guy, plus a 5-star guy in Marshawn Lloyd backing him up, plus Juju McDowell, who set the world on fire in preseason, and then Rashad Amos, who we mentioned is 5th string. Okay, name me a team that goes 3-9 with that type of personnel. If they go 3-9, it's either going to be because of injuries or something's going horribly wrong, and you probably need to, sit there and kind of wonder, because 3-9 means, you're either 0-8 in the SEC, which would be embarrassing. They won 2 SEC games last year, by the way, folks. Or you lose to Troy or East Carolina, and that's not good either. So, just some of these doomsday scenarios, I don't think people are thinking. Now, look, if it was a 10-game all-SEC schedule, I think you do cartwheels for 3 or 4 wins, but it's not. And there's not a single team on the schedule besides Georgia, the first 7 games, where South Carolina is an overwhelming underdog. Last year, LSU, I mean, you knew LSU was struggling, but you also knew they had players. You look at Kentucky's personnel, it's great for Kentucky, but they're breaking in a new offense. We're going to find out about them because they play Missouri in week 2. You look at Tennessee and their roster issues.
Find out about Missouri as well. Had a conversation on your message boards last night about the difference in Missouri and in South Carolina. What is the difference? Because they're not to interrupt you, JC, but there are a lot of people. We've talked to Mike Morgan about this. There's a lot of people that think that Connor Bazelak is a difference maker for them. And I think let's all remember something here. Connor Bazelak and Luke Doty are 2 different quarterbacks. Totally different quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different. And this game's played in November. All right. So there's a lot that can change between those 2. I'm not predicting a win or a loss for anybody. But what is, like, JC, when we look at South Carolina, if I'm reading this correctly, you and I seemingly are always on the same page about things. If we're not comparing the Gamecocks to Georgia or A&M or Clemson or who the hell else is on that schedule that everybody's pinning as a loss? Florida,
Georgia, A&M, or Clemson. I think everybody else.
Okay. So
they're at least from a talent standpoint within striking distance.
Okay, and that's what I'm getting at here. Like when you look at Missouri, I would say Missouri is a great comparable for the Gamecocks. Okay, regardless of the fact they went 5-5 last year and Carolina was 2-10. Who's better and who's better where and in what positions? Well, Carolina's better at running back. They're better up front. I know that's all true. They're better at tight end. They're not better at quarterback from an experience standpoint. But these are 2 different quarterbacks here. Don't know the answer at wide receiver. Don't know that answer. They've added a guy from Ohio State who's seemingly pretty good, and I think their top returning receiver returns. But so I would give them the edge on that. Carolina's better up front on the defensive line. They're better at linebacker, and they're probably not better in the secondary. So who's better? Well, I don't know. They're going to play in November. But the fact of the matter is that people look at Missouri and say, well, yeah, they're probably the surprise team. They're 8-4, and the Gamecocks at best are going to win 4 games this year. When you do, a tad homework and get past the fact that Connor Bazelak started 11 games last year and look at the rest of it, I don't know that I'm seeing that yet. Prove it to me in October and in November.
Yeah, and last year was a weird year. I mean, LSU had a nut job at defensive coordinator, Popolini, and Missouri. Look, Eli Drinkwitz is really good offensively from the standpoint of
really good.
He's not scared to beat you 45-41, and he's not scared to beat you 20-10. And he did that back-to-back against LSU and Kentucky. You look at their scores, 17-10 against the Gamecocks. They got shut out in the second half by that defense that they put on the field last year.
Yeah.
And
just to throw a little nugget at you. Sorry, buddy. I know I keep interrupting. We invite you on to talk, and I'm just talking over you. But
it's all cool.
To throw a little nugget at you, just so everybody, Carolina's defense was the worst we've ever seen, right? Historically bad. Here are the final three numbers for Missouri last year: 48, 49, and 51. They gave up 150 points in their last three games.
Yeah, and their D coordinator went to Illinois, so they got a new guy in there.
Nobody's talking about that.
Actually, that D coordinator called a pretty good game the other day for the Illini and Brett Bielema. But
I mean, they gave up 38, 35, 41, and then 41 again against Florida. 38 to Bama, 35 to Tennessee, who sucked. But you know what? They only gave up 10 to Kentucky, 10 to South Carolina, and 0 to Vanderbilt. They're pretty good. I'm not buying it. We got to see it.
I don't think they're going to be good on defense. That Kentucky game, too, that they had was a function of their offense keeping the ball for, I think they had like 44 minutes. But that's what I'm saying about Drinkwitz. If he's in a situation like that, he's going to sit there and gear it down. He geared it down against the Gamecocks. But yeah, I mean, look, you look at their results, great. You beat LSU. They were 5-5 football team, and if it weren't for a thrown shoe, they would have had a losing season. Great. You beat Kentucky. I know everybody in Columbia lives in fear of the mighty Wildcats, but they were really average last season. And I know
how many wins do they have? 5?
4. Well, 5. They got to 5. They got 5 and 6 because they were 4 and 6, and they actually got to play in their bowl game.
So LSU had 5, Kentucky had 5, South Carolina had 2. That's 12. We're getting there, boys and girls. How many did Vanderbilt have last year? Wasn't it? I don't know, 0. And how about Arkansas? How many wins did they have?
Arkansas went 3 and 6 or 3 and 7, okay. But that was
5 wins.
I mean, that was,
So their 5 wins had 15 combined wins amongst those teams, and 2 of them had 10 of them.
Yep.
I mean, come on, man.
And look, they got stomped against Georgia at home, and then the Pirate figured. I mean, Mississippi State went through a period last year, folks, where they could not score. I mean, at all. They had the wrong quarterback out there, but they couldn't score. I mean, 14 against Arkansas, 2 against Kentucky, 14 against A&M, shut out by Bama, only 24 against Vandy. Then they made a change during the off week and scared the bejesus out of Georgia, nearly beat Ole Miss. Not sure how Auburn held them to 10, and then they rose the heck up against Missouri and beat them 51-32. And then won that the Fight Bowl out in Fort Worth that I was sitting there pounding beers watching New Year's Eve. And there was a fight at the end, and Leach had a nice thing to say. And out of Mississippi State was not a bunch of world beaters, but they hung 51, and you're right, against the Missouri defense. That said, Missouri, look, Carolina, this is a year where they don't have to worry about them for a while. It's out there. South Carolina has never lost to Missouri 3 games in a row either. Ever. You had a 2-game losing streak with the 2 bowl losses before they were in the league. Carolina won in 2012, 2013, lost in 14 and 15. Will Muschamp, Jake Bentley beat them 3 years in a row. And then, you had the 19 game, which was, the Ryan Helinski fan club should, they blame everybody else for it. No, he was injured or whatever. But the bottom line is, Jake Bentley against Missouri never scored 2 touchdowns for the Tigers, as Helinski did in that game. And that was a disaster and terrible coaching. And then last year, I thought the Gamecocks, that's the last time they really played with a lot of fight on defense. And that could have gone either way. So the point is, these teams like Missouri and Kentucky and, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, I just listed 4 SEC opponents. And then East Carolina, Troy, and Eastern Illinois. Nobody should live in fear of them. Nobody should live in fear of Auburn. I think Auburn and Florida will have a talent advantage. Again, those are in November, so who knows? But Florida always has a speed advantage, but you don't know. I mean, you know, by the time you play them, both those games are at home. You beat Auburn last year at home. You've actually been competitive against Florida 3 straight years and beat them the year before. You know, there's not that much difference. And so I have a hard time just sitting there chalking up, 8 losses. And maybe it's because I actually do understand the concept of 2-8 last year. Yes, it was 2-8, really more like a 4-8 or 5-7. Okay, if you'd have played a normal schedule, 2 SEC wins plus, some cupcakes or whatever. And so maybe maybe my thinking is different than just somebody that says, well, they only won 2. But that's the thing. Yeah, you only won 2, but could this mighty Kentucky team everybody's talking about only won 5 and if they hadn't gone to a bowl, they'd only won 4. And I'm not saying, look, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, even Vandy to a certain extent, Troy, East Carolina, they're all capable of beating the Gamecocks. Turnovers is something I'm really concerned about going into. Nobody else has talked about them, and probably because they're scared to. But I'm concerned about turnovers and things like that. You can't go turn the ball over and play sloppy and things like that, not cash in on opportunities and expect to win any football game against a team with a pulse. But I just fail to understand, and I know that the crowd that doesn't understand a lot of things is going to come back with a graduate assistant at quarterback and that narrative. And I keep hearing the secondary is terrible. I'm like, it's a completely new secondary. I mean, I can't get any worse than last year, folks. These people have never even seen. They don't even know who Marcellus Dial is. No. The secondary's bad. Can't stop anybody. Pass it. Well, maybe not, but you don't know yet. I mean, and these guys aren't lacking talent.
So let me ask you. Actually, let me bring Darren into this because he's being so kind to let us bitch back and forth about it. Let me ask Darren. Realistically, I mean, you've seen him more than anybody here. Will Levis is now the quarterback at Kentucky. By the way, everybody smokes cigarettes in Kentucky. I don't know why that is, but so he's the quarterback. Like, I think, JC, that a lot of people believe if Kentucky gets a legitimate guy there as their signal caller, they can make some noise. I'm not saying they're going to win the East or anything. I'm saying they can make some noise. Is Will Levis that noise, Darren? Based on what you've seen, we don't know what he's going to look like, but based on what you've seen.
Based on what I've seen is very different from based on what Mike Morgan told us yesterday and what he's heard from folks that he's close to around the Kentucky program. I can tell you what I saw, and I can tell you what I heard. I heard as a Penn State fan when Levis was getting to campus, hey, we got a guy who can push for playing time. We got a guy with a rocket arm, and we got probably the successor. Then what I saw is he had his chance. He has a rocket arm, but his strength is his legs and his physicality, and he could never wrangle the job away from Sean Clifford, who wasn't playing particularly well anyway. So he's a big question mark in my eyes. Has he taken a huge step forward? Is it a change of scenery? Is it a different game plan that he just happens to mesh with? I have no idea. But everything Mike Morgan was hearing and everything he told us is that those in Kentucky feel like he is the answer. I can say Penn State felt like he was potentially going to be the answer, and now he's at Kentucky.
So basically what you're saying is
he's an unknown to me. He's very much an unknown.
So he's in the same spot that he was at Penn State. Like, here's your chance.
The difference is he's been anointed already. He's already been given the reins. It's his team. He's taken the first team reps, all that. That's the difference.
Interesting. So how about this, JC? Look, I was just looking at it to make sure that I was right. I looked at some of this last night and had to remind myself. I can't remember what I did 30 minutes ago. But Tennessee has had a couple of years in the last 5 years on the recruiting trail here, based on 24/7 rankings. Better than South Carolina. Okay, outside of that, worse or comparable? like within a spot or two. And that doesn't matter of fact, if you're between like 13 and 30, it's all pretty similar, boys and girls, just kind of an FYI. So, and by the way, a lot of the guys that made those classes high, they gone. Henry Toa, he's in T-Town. All right. He's down there with Bama. The kid, the gray kid, Oklahoma. They got another guy that played on the offensive line. I can't remember his name. He gone. They got Josh Heupel. Didn't they kick a bunch of dudes off the team for robbing somebody or something stupid? That seems to happen once every 2 years up there in Knoxville. So, I mean, there's not a big, like, if there's a talent gap between Knoxville and Columbia, it can't be that much. It can't be. So, but Tennessee is, well, I tell you what, they're surprised. They're going to win 7 games. I'm like, okay, they might, but don't try to sell me that in August. I'm not sold yet.
Tennessee's schedule is favorable to a certain extent. They got to beat Pitt in week 2. I think they have a chance. It's favorable early. I think there's a lot of assumption there that if they can get halfway to a bowl, they'll have confidence. But, man, check out what comes their way after the first 3, okay? You got
Darren thinks Pittsburgh's going to beat them.
Bowling Green tomorrow night. Bowling Green's terrible, or at least they were terrible last year. Urban Meyer, Dino Babers are not walking through that door. Neither is anybody else. So they'll beat the snot out of them, as Josh Heupel's teams do when they play undermatched teams. He loves to score 80. They may score 81. Everybody on Rocky Top. Yay. Then Pitt comes to town next week. Pat Narduzzi, pretty good coach. They win that, and I could see a scenario where they do. I could see a scenario where Pitt grinds the crap out of them, and as Josh Heupel's teams have done against better defenses, they struggle. Pitt gets a big time of possession. We can break it down next week. So you got Tennessee. So let's just for poops and giggles here, they start 3-0. Okay. So then they go to Florida. Now, I think Florida's best team of the Mullen era was last year. I think they got to they're going to be different. I don't underestimate them anymore, but they're going to be different. Tennessee really struggles against the Gators. That game certainly isn't what it used to be. Then they go to, as we talked about earlier, the Missouri Tigers. Then the Gamecocks come to Knoxville. And then Lane Kiffin Bowl, heads to Knoxville with Ole Miss.
What do you think that's going to be like up there?
That's going to be interesting. He's probably going to run up the score. And then they head to Bryant-Denny to play the Tide. So
I don't think they're going to win that game.
Even if you start 3-0, there's a chance, you may win one of those games, but probably not. Oh, and by the way, after the off week, you go to Kentucky. You got Georgia at home, and then you round it out with the South Alabama Vanderbilt. Tennessee, because they lost all those people, and because I think the national media, they look at Josh Heupel and go, ooh, big scores. Oh, God. They don't look at his true body of work. They don't look at the fact that in Missouri.
Have we been hacked?
Oh, well, we're going to block this one.
Somebody's hacked us here.
What is that?
Didn't go on the screen. That's like someone asked in the comments before, this is the silencing of DJ. I'm like, yeah, I got to moderate all you over here.
I don't know, JC. Chat.com. Hot girls and boys video chat. Should we let them in or not?
They're gone. Blocked.
I'll take the hot girls. Video chat. Not really. Anyway, but the national media, they sit there, when they rank guys out, Josh Heupel, oh my God, he's putting up big scores because they love big scores. This is the same group that thought, Willie Taggart and Dino Babers and all these guys that do that are probably are great coaches or whatever. So you get there and it's they don't know anything about Shane because he doesn't have a pedigree like that, and so they rank him high and they think he's automatically going to put up sports. I'll say this about Tennessee: Joe Milton, their quarterback, I thought had a great skill set coming out of high school. I was surprised he didn't work out at Michigan. If he could put it all together, they have the receivers to make some things happen. They have Teion Evans from South Carolina who's going to be good.
Yeah.
that could be the difference with them. So at the end of the day, I do think that I do think there's a chance for them. I just think they're kind of in the same situation as the Gamecocks are with roster and attrition, and their numbers were a lot bigger. And I told everybody when the recruiting happened, they were worried about Tennessee finishing 11th and Muschamp's classes finishing 19th. Not very much difference there. And now you look at a lot of his guys are still here at South Carolina. A lot of those guys, Tennessee, are home. So,
well, we'll wrap it up. And I want to remind everybody, JC will return at 1:00 on Friday for our Gamecock football preview show, which we hope that all of you will be tuned into. JC, Darren, myself, and Michael Flint for that full hour previewing this weekend's ball game. But here's a quick summary. All of these teams have question marks. And preseason predictions are for fun. They're for fans. They're for talking points. But anybody who's just hung up on the fact that two of that group of those four teams are just going to run out and win 7 or 8 games, you are wrong. We have to see how it works out. We got to see how it plays out. But they all have enough question marks, JC, to not guarantee 7-5 or 8-4 or beyond that. They're going to have a lot of things go right, and we'll have to kind of see how it all unfolds. I mean, Missouri has Connor Bazelak, but South Carolina, of that group, of those 4 teams, has the best defensive line, and the best offensive line. So, and the best running back room, by the way. I forgot to include that. I mean, they don't even know how to play all these guys yet. So, will y'all be talking about the game at all in the Big Spur over the next couple of days, or should we just, just wait till Saturday? What do you think?
We're going to be talking about the game. I'll be fired up about it. Eastern Illinois is a little better than, maybe.
Oh, come on, Lou.
Well, let me say I have an excellent kickoff return.
Let me tell you what's going to happen here.
Their punter is one of the best punters to ever play the game. That guy with the club foot that carries the water can give us some trouble. He's very physical.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, JC, this team hasn't won a lot the last couple of years, and it sure would be nice to walk out of there tomorrow, Saturday night around 10:00. No matter if it's this School of the Deaf, Dumb, and Blind or Eastern Illinois with a win.
I'm gonna say something too about it. I think I've never thought that Will Muschamp did not recruit talented players to South Carolina. And I know there's a lot of naysayers that are out there, blah, 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 blah. I think, one prediction I'll make this year is you're going to be surprised at some of these guys that, you're going, wow, they were pretty good. I think that for all the criticism out there about him, I think people are going to find that, he left the program in pretty damn good shape when you compare it to, the way the program's been left in the past. So we'll see what happens. But that's going to be my final point here. And I guess we'll talk Friday and preview the game in a kind of a quick hitting fashion. And then we'll talk next Wednesday and we'll see what happens.
Under 48 hours from getting you back on, JC, just 3 days away from tailgate season in Columbia, South Carolina. By the way, want to remind everybody, JC will be in town for the Kentucky game, and he will be on a diet and drinking water. So you can
be signing autographs, man. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
It's good. Hey, by the way, guys, up here, about 72 degrees with a breeze today on September 1st. So it feels like football.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Sweet. Love it. Love you. You're the man. See you, bud.
All right, guys. See you.
There you go. We got to actually see him this week. JC Shurburtt with theBigSpur.com. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about it. It is time for Carolina football, and when we return, it'll be time for Carolina football with Keith Allsep. Previewing this week's Eastern Illinois game, the host of the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road. You know what happens when you sell record numbers of new vehicles? That's right, we take in record numbers of local trades. Despite what the news is saying, quality pre-owned vehicles really aren't that hard to find. You just need to know where to look. Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate and on the web at stokesvw.com. We've got over 1,200 pre-owned cars, trucks, SUVs, and all at a fraction of the price when new. Every vehicle has been inspected and reconditioned, many with the balance of factory warranty. Best of all, at Stokes Volkswagen, you don't need perfect credit to get approved for a quality pre-owned vehicle. And we'll take any trade in any condition, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Don't forget, we'll buy your car even if you don't buy a car from us. You're going to love our pre-owned selection, I guarantee it. So come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Negative trade equity financed to new loan, subject to lender approval.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
You hear me talk about Dog and Duck all the time, and there's no other place I'm going to watch my college and NFL than the Dog and Duck. They have 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road. They have specials all football season long, like $12 pitchers of their own D2 brew, $5 pints of Sierra Nevada, weekly pick'em sheets with prizes, and the best wings in town, bar none. For all your football, college, and NFL, the Dog and Duck, Clements Ferry Road, Bell Hall, and Park West.
It's time for Carolina football.
The rave breaks out in Columbia. The electricity here in Columbia, well, it's been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Left side, Jeffries got space and a touchdown.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores!
Bernard Brown, he's up to the 20 and comes to the 24, bounces outside, and he's still going. He's fouled.
Raynard Brown, Keith, you probably remember him. A lot of great ones have come through the program over the years. And as this season unfolds, we'll make sure that a lot of them are part of our coverage. Welcome back. Our final segment today on the JB and Goldwater Show. It is time officially for Carolina football. And, I mean this sincerely, and this isn't just a show type thing. Last year, Keith invited me every week to do a preview show with him for South Carolina. On the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. It meant a lot to me. I had a lot of fun doing that, recording those with you. But I'm a big fan of talking to folks similar to myself who understand the history of this program, because when you walk into the ballpark, Keith, as you know, there are literally there's 2 banners that say anything that have champions on them, and that's it. So we can't hang our hat on that. But this program does have tradition. And those who've been around it a long time, like you and I, are very proud of it. And you know what else is part of this conversation? Shane Beamer. Because a lot of times when coaches take over programs that don't, in their eyes, have much tradition, like, winning things that matter, they think that
what tradition is.
They think that they'll just make it all about them, and here's what I'm going to do. Shane Beamer didn't do that. He embraced what South Carolina is. And I think that's one of the reasons why people can't wait to watch him stand on the sidelines on Saturday night. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon. The voice of Keith Jackson, that was the voice of college football, because there was only one game a week back then. That one turned out great for the Gamecocks. There was one in 1980 against the Dogs and a U.S. Senate candidate from Georgia who was a freshman named Herschel Walker that was heartbreaking. Those are the only 2 times I can remember Keith Jackson calling a South Carolina game, and I actually met him after that game in 1984 on the way to camp out for Clemson tickets, because you left the Florida State game, which was an afternoon game.
Yeah.
Said your goodbyes to your parents at the tailgate, went back to the dorm, packed up, and headed over to the Carolina Coliseum for an overnight camp out for Carolina Clemson tickets at Death Valley, and certainly one of the more memorable and historic games in that rivalry. But it was just a great experience. And, you know, for people like you and I and a lot of your listeners, Carolina football is something we grew up with. It's something we shared with our families. It's a unique experience. It's just not going to a game.
Right.
It's something just means more. And it means a lot to me. And every time I walk into that stadium and they play 2001, I'm just flooded with the best memories of growing up with Carolina football.
I couldn't agree more. Darren and I have talked about this exact same thing a lot in relation to the changing landscape of college athletics. Because, and I've said this repeatedly to Darren, I said, to me, I put on these colors like people put on Bama colors and Georgia colors and whatever, and it instantly takes me back to when I was a kid with my dad, and now being a father of my little girls and getting to one day bring them into Williams-Brice Stadium when they won't burn the place down. We'd get kicked out right now if I tried to take Riley in there. You know, going to all these games, all these years. My uncle's been in the Gamecock Club for 55 years. You know, we'd be able to buy half of this state with the amount of money that we've given to the University of South Carolina in over a half a century, our family all combined. So, I mean, but that money is worth it, Keith, because and I'm lumping Shane Beamer into this. We see him as us. We see ourselves in him. And I don't know how this is going to work out. He might not win a game in 3 years and get fired. I don't know. But that's where the optimism lands, I think, going into this season is we see how we would react if we got to run out of the tunnel to 2001 with a football team. And, you know, it means a lot, I think, to Gamecock fans to know that there's somebody that gives a crap as much as they do.
So I think one of the best things ever done by a coach at South Carolina was when Shane Beamer was an assistant with South Carolina. Ellis Johnson, the week before the Clemson game in 2009, took the players up to the very top rows of the upper deck in the west stands and showed them the point of view that longtime Gamecocks watched the games, that paid good money for, and he gave them a lesson in what that rivalry is about and essentially what Carolina football is about, from growing up in the state, coaching at different high schools, coaching at different schools, having had a chance to be on both sides of the rivalry. And, you know, I just thought that was awesome. It was awesome to have Steve Spurrier bring in, you know, at times guys that had been going to games for 50 years to talk about their experience at South Carolina football. And I think that's one of the things that now unites Gamecock Nation like no time since before 2014, when we started to witness the end of the Steve Spurrier era, is Shane Beamer was a part of building the best teams in South Carolina history. He was the recruiting coordinator. He was personally responsible for getting Steve Spurrier out of his office and off the golf course, something his predecessors could not do, to get him to go and visit recruits like Marcus Lattimore, to do the cha-cha slide, to get to Rock Hill to Stephon Gilmore, to go to Florida to Stephen Garcia, to get to Georgia to see a three-star quarterback that was a converted wide receiver named Connor Shaw, who grew up idolizing Steve Spurrier and dreaming of playing for him. And Beamer's part of the best of Carolina football, and I think that unites this fan base, and I can't wait. I'm like a kid at Christmas time. I can't wait for Saturday night at Williams-Brice Stadium.
You know what I think is very interesting, Keith. As football evolves and it turns into a TV sport, and which has already turned into a TV sport, we've seen that a lot of fan bases, and South Carolina is no exception to this. They're absolutely like everybody else. You get into seasons where the stands fill up for the big games and they don't for the games that aren't big, like Eastern Illinois. That's not going to be the case this week. This game is about South Carolina, not Eastern Illinois. This isn't South Carolina and Georgia. This isn't South Carolina and Florida or Kentucky or anybody else. Yeah, there's probably going to be more energy in the ballpark when those teams come to town. I get it. But this isn't going to be a 50,000 person attended game with COVID, mind you, because it's Eastern Illinois. This is about the Gamecocks. And I think that's where this mentality has shifted since Shane took over. Like, this is about us. And you're either going to be in the boat or you're not. And I'll lump one more part into it. I'm going to leave the floor to you. That's why we have you come on, so you can talk. Yesterday, as silly as this sounds, and as silly as it seemingly has been now that we look back on it, Shane Beamer squashed this whole uniform thing. And he said, we're going to wear white, and we're going to wear garnet, and we're going to wear white pants. I'm going to get that out of the way, and I need my guys to worry about playing freaking football, not what color jersey they're going to wear on Saturday night. Then I got a feeling down the road, guess what? They're going to slap on the big game garnet or whatever. But he's trying – when you go to Penn State, Darren, if you're a new coach, let's say they fire James Franklin after he goes 1-11 this year. Kidding. If a new coach comes in, you think he's going to change the uniforms at Penn State? No.
Dude,
it ain't going to happen at Georgia. It ain't going to happen at Tennessee. It ain't going to happen at Clemson. It ain't going to happen anywhere. Gimmicky teams do this crap. And Beamer wants none of that. And I think the message is we need to be who we are. And starting Saturday night, it's about supporting who we are.
When Bill O'Brien took over, and that was the most tumultuous time in the history of Penn State, and one of the most in college sports and just, I guess, college life in general. The only change that was made, there was a time, briefly, where names were put on the jerseys, only to honor the kids, the players who chose to stick around. And there was a time, briefly, when you'll see a number on the side of the helmet. That's one of the things that makes Penn State great. I completely agree. Don't mess around with the uniforms. Yeah. It's the best uniform in college football.
Be who you are, right, Keith? The floor is all yours, my friend. I'm sorry.
I mean, look, Georgia has changed. They are changing to some degree. They're wearing, all red. Clemson's wearing all purple. I still don't understand that. Hillbilly royalty, I guess. I kid my Clemson friends with that. But, Penn State, Alabama, Notre Dame, Southern Cal. I mean, there's only a few. Nebraska. Don't get me started on that. But, there's only a few iconic brands. I think if you're South Carolina, you don't have the tradition. Why not mix it up? Why not, be kind of like Oregon? Have 3 helmets. Kids love that. Shane Beamer is, always recruiting. At his press conference yesterday, he mentioned recruits coming in. One man on a young man on an official visit. Got to put our best foot forward for him. Want a big crowd there. September 1st. Yeah, we get to go out. Can't wait. If he could have, he would have probably, had "We Won't Delp" hashtags all behind him at the podium. But
they might paint that on the field this weekend.
I mean, look, to me, in the grand scheme of things, Antonio Williams and Jaden Gibson are a lot more important than Oscar Delp because South Carolina's got tight ends. JC chronicled that. they don't have game changers at wide receiver. And in order to win a lot of games in the SEC, you've got to have that. So, I mean, but that, Shane Beamer refused to hide his enthusiasm for his first game as a head coach. Yeah. He's experienced 2001. He's experienced running out of the tunnel. But guess what? The pressure wasn't on him back then. It wasn't, with a Hall of Fame head coach. He's got a Hall of Fame name, and that in itself is a lot to live up to. But he's excited, and I think that excites longtime Gamecock fans to have a head coach that's not just passing through, that got fired at Florida, that's not a Lou Holtz or Steve Spurrier, but a guy that basically cut his teeth as a full-time assistant, as a recruiting coordinator, as a member of the most successful team or time in the program at South Carolina. They won the SEC East in 2010. They signed Jadeveon Clowney on Valentine's Day of 2011, and then Shane Beamer went to coach for his daddy at Virginia Tech.
So it's Eastern Illinois this week, and Keith, we all expect Carolina to win the game. We can chop it up, and I would encourage everybody to obviously listen to the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast for more details on your end about that. I know y'all been having a lot of these conversations, but as far as the Gamecocks themselves go, what are you most enthused about from the players' standpoint?
I think the one thing that we can really hang our hats on is the culture. I think you're going to see a team that is going to play hard, they're going to play fast, and they're going to play together, and they're going to play for each other. And it's not going to be perfect. All three phases will be equally coached and equally emphasized, and I just want to see a fan base that's fully behind their head coach for the first time in 7 years, and see a team that is all in this for each other, not to showcase their NFL talents and then go into the league, but team first, play for the brothers, band of brothers together. And I think that's going to be exciting.
Of the injuries, Cam Smith, Kevin Harris, Luke Doty, those are the most notable. EJ Jenkins had some issues, but he's gonna be ready to go. Of the injuries of those guys, it sounds like Kevin and Cam are going to be able to play. I don't know if they will or how much they'll be able to or how much they will play them, but they're able to go. What has you most interested? Doty's not going to go this week, Keith. We can all put that on the shelf. But what has you most interested of that group of injuries, and why?
Well, here's what I think. I think if you're Kevin Harris, if you're his mom, if you're part of his inner circle, this is his contract year. He led the SEC in rushing as a sophomore. Running backs have not a very long shelf life. This time next year, he wants to be in an NFL locker room getting ready to play a season opener. And so I think you want to be cautious with him. You don't need him this week. Hey, let's get Marshawn Lloyd and Zaquandre White and Juju and Rashad Amos all the carries they can handle. Let's get them going. You don't need him. If you do, there are larger issues at hand. Cam Smith, I think the hope is he gets out there and can play some, because long-term, you really need him. You need his talent, because I saw him in San Antonio. He has the skill set as elite as any guy that Will Muschamp brought into this program at cornerback. It's been slower to come because he needed some, weight, some physicality, and, he played behind two guys that are playing on Sundays, even though one of them should have been at safety the whole time. But, I think he's the one we'll see probably first, probably the most. That's just my opinion. I think if if Kevin Harris was my son, I want him 100%, and I want to work him back in because there's no minor back injury. I don't care how you frame it. There's no such thing because I've been through 2 back surgeries and I don't play college football. So for me, that's kind of how I look at it.
Marcus Satterfield said today, we haven't earned the right to hold anything back. We're going to run our offense.
Plain and simple.
Okay. So that was where I was going with that. See, he just answers the questions and moves on. What do we want to talk about now? What's your favorite food?
How about we switch roles?
Ask me what I think. So on the defensive side of the football, look, Juju McDowell, his name is popped. I'm not even getting into the Zeb Nolan stuff, Keith. There's no point. The cute headlines are out there. PFF College can have all the fun with it that they want to. Those guys are morons anyways, and they don't ever get anything right, so I could care less. But on the defensive side of the football, I think it's safe to say, especially early in the year, and I know that we're about 3 minutes from having to get you out of here, but early in the year, those guys they're going to have to make plays all year, but as this offense tries to evolve, especially with Luke Doty getting healthy, I'm going to look more to the defense starting in week 2 to try to do something special for Carolina, create some turnovers, create some big stops, things like that. So even though EIU is a much inferior opponent to South Carolina, what's important defensively this week in your mind?
I think those guys up front have got to be the dudes that everybody's making them out to be. Don't be just a guy, be a bunch of dudes. I mean, this is the deepest and most talented defensive front at South Carolina since, Jadeveon Clowney, Devin Taylor, Cliff Matthews, Kelsey Quarles, Travian Robertson. I mean, there were a lot of guys. They may have more guys even than back then. I don't think they have a Clowney, but they have more guys. I want to see Jordan Birch. I want to see the jump. Okay, it's year 2. He flashed last year. He's had a full offseason. Now I'm ready to see him go. I'm ready to see J.J. Enigbare live up to the hype. Zach Pickens live up to the hype. Tonka Hemingway, I wouldn't be surprised if by game 4 or 5, well, maybe they don't start him, but he's probably the second most talented defensive tackle on the roster. I mean, they've just got a lot of guys. If you're a Gamecock, if you're a coach, I can guarantee you if you could get Shane Beamer privately, he would say my offensive and defensive lines have got to go out and take care of business in weeks 1 and weeks 2, and they've got to show that they can hold up the entire season. Because that's just the strength of the football team, the running game and the front 4.
Well said. I totally agree. I mean, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but I'll give you the floor if you'd like to make a prediction on the game and a prediction for the season.
Well, I'm not going to make a prediction on the season because I think this is a team that is going to get better as the season goes along. You don't know when is Luke Doty back. How does he play? For Zeb Nolan, it's manage the game.
Yeah.
Don't lose the game.
Don't do
end every possession with a kick. Run the hell out of the football. That's what you do, and play good defense. Week 1, somewhere between 45 to 48 to 13 or 17. Okay. I think South Carolina is much better. These guys should plow over Eastern Illinois. I believe that. And so, it's time to get with it. If you're an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or a running back, you need to step up and man up. And then, can Beamer ball with Pete Limbo, with Shane Beamer, with special teams? Can you block a kick in a swing game? Can you hit a big return play that, makes the difference in 5 wins and 6 wins. I mean, that's what it's all about for me.
It's a confidence building week, certainly for Gamecock football. They have not won a lot of games, as we all know, the last couple of years, no matter who's out there this week, Eastern Illinois, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, or whomever. A win is a win, and clean, crisp football as much as it can be in week 1 is very important. Keith, we know you'll be watching. We love everybody does. Everybody loves the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast. We actually get more folks talking to us about you than talking about us around here. So we always appreciate your time, and it now actually officially is time for Carolina football. So thank you, buddy.
I'll just use the tagline, no doubt about it, JB.
Always, that's right. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
There you go, Keith Allsep, the host of the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast. It is there's no doubt about it, the best podcast available specifically to South Carolina. Good fun day here. Thanks to Keith, JC, Darren, Adam, Steven, Squirrel, and God knows who else commented today. All of you. We really appreciate it. Getting closer. It's going to be a wonderful Wednesday afternoon, Darren. Crisp air is coming in. Some humidity
rain over here. It's about to rain.
Oh,
I think.
Right. Not here. We'll be back tomorrow. We're getting you ready to go. There's college football tonight. We'll get into some high school stuff tomorrow, some Brave stuff. We got a lot of stuff, man. Carolina, Clemson this weekend. Have a great day. The JB and Goldwater Show, very proudly presented by Motley Rice, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, returns tomorrow at noon.